Hey guys, welcome back to 22 Lima Romeo, where we focus on the competitive side of the rimfire world. As you can see, we are back out here on the range today. On a beautiful February afternoon, we are filming the March 2024 NRL22 Course of Fire. However, this month, I wanted to do a little lot testing before we started this month's Course of Fire. So I'm going to take you through that process. We've got a couple of different lots of Lapua Center X here. Now, as you'll notice, the boxes look a little different. These are still both produced at the same factory and should have the same accuracy potential. However, what we're going to find out is the velocities, the standard deviations, the extreme spreads, and the group size is probably going to be wildly different between these two lots of ammunition. I'm going to load up a couple magazines. We've got the lap radar set up. We've got the trigger cam going. We're going to shoot a couple of groups of each lot of ammunition and see which one shoots the best. I will preface this by saying we're going to be shooting this lot for today's video because, well, I've got a bunch of it and we're not really using it, so I might as well burn it up for you guys. All right, let's get out there and get this done. All right, guys, first up, we are going to be testing this new box of Lapua. This is lot number 602751. This lot is a lot that I shoot regularly with in competition. I know this stuff shoots really good, so I shouldn't expect any different groups today. I've got 15 shots loaded up here. We're going to shoot 5 shots to warm up the barrel, and then we'll shoot 2 5-shot groups and kind of collect all the data from those on the chronograph. Now, we've got a 0 board set up. I've got magazines loaded. Let's go ahead and get this done. All right, Fowler group, here we go. All right, guys, that wasn't too terribly bad. Seemed to settle right down. Once we got that barrel warmed up, let's take 2 5-shot groups, and then we'll switch ammos. All right, that's slot number 1. Let's see how it looks on the chronograph. All right, we had an average of 1071, an extreme spread of 35 feet per second, which, you know what, that's really not that good, and a standard deviation of 9.6 feet per second. Let's load this other lot up and see what the results are for that one. All right, guys, for this lot, it is lot number 605384. I don't really know what to expect for the accuracy on this thing, so all we can do is hope and pray. I've got 3 mags loaded up here, 5 shots each. We'll shoot 5 shots to warm up the barrel, and then we'll shoot 2 5-shot groups and see how this stuff does in the chronograph. All right, guys, well, for that one, we had an average of 1035, an extreme spread of 41 with a standard deviation of 10.4. Now, what we saw out there on paper was that one of these lots definitely performed better in this rifle than the other lot. That is going to be true with just about any type of match ammunition that you would find out at the store or you order online. Lot testing is one of those things that if you want to be competitive in this environment, you'd simply have to do. So with that out of the way, now you guys have seen the importance of lot testing. Let's set up some stages and get this Course of Fire underway.
First up for the March 2024 Course of Fire, we have Lucky Charms. We have a 1.5 and 2.5 at 80 yards. We're going to start standing, rifle and all gear in hand, mag in, action open. On the start signal, we'll build a position and engage each target, large, then small, with 1 shot each. After 2 shots, you must move rungs. The outside left, middle, and outside right positions must be used at least once during the stage. Additionally, Each rung must be used at least once during the stage. Each 2x4 will have 3 available positions, outside edges, and the center. If you cannot reach the highest 2 rungs, then you may repeat previous rungs, but in a different position. Rungs may not be immediately repeated, i.e. 4 shots from the same rung in a row.
Ready?
Yep, ready now.
Stand by. Engage.
Starting off with Lucky Charms. For my gear on this stage, I'll be using the Cold Tack Cuddle Bag, the Grey Out CNC Mini Plate Pro, and the Armageddon Gear Mini Plate Pro pad. I'll set my scope at about 15 power. Now on this stage, on its face, it seems like it's a lot of movement, but it's really not. It's only 5 positions from this pyramid. The way I decided to shoot this is from the bottom rung first. That way I can get a decent wind call. I feel like that's where I'm going to be the most stable. And because I have to use each position on the pyramid, I decide to go diagonal to the left on rung number 2 in the middle, then rung number 3 on the far left, and then straight up the left side. That makes it so that I utilize all 5 rungs and all 3 positions per the stage requirements. Now by this point, each position that we build on the pyramid should start to feel pretty familiar. I'm quickly able to build my position, get out of position and into the next position, and I know exactly what I need to do with my body and what I'm going to do with that cuddle bag. Now as we transition up here to the top of the pyramid, things get a little more unstable, and that is because the rule of thumb applies here. The further away we get from the ground, the naturally more unstable we become. That's why I started this stage on the bottom rung. The idea was to be as stable as I could be so I could get my wind call figured out. Unfortunately, this stage wasn't a good example of that. However, we only dropped 2, and that was a fun stage. Let's get on to the next one.
35 seconds left.
Next up, we have Pot of Gold. We have a 1 and 1.5 inch target at 55 yards, and a 2.5 and 3 inch target at 92. We're going to start standing, rifle and all gear in hand, mag in, action open. On the start signal, we'll build a position on a marked position on top of the sawhorse and engage the targets in the following order, moving to the opposite marked position after each string. Position 1, near targets, large, large, then small. Position 2, far targets, large, large, then small. Back to position 1, near targets, small, small, then large. Back to position 2, far targets, small, small, then large. Note, the marked positions on the sawhorse will be 3 inches from the left and right edges.
Ready?
Yep, ready.
Stand by. Engage.
For Pot of Gold, I'm going to use the exact same equipment that I used on Lucky Charms. The Cuddle Bag, the Grey Up CNC Mini Plate Pro, and the Armageddon Gear Mini Plate Pro pad. I'm going to set my scope at about 15 power. From a strategy on this, I wanted to keep my movement to a minimum. I felt like going into this stage that I was really going to use a lot of time trying to find that stability that I needed to make these impacts, and that proved to be true. Because this stage throws a lot at the shooter, both with switching to 2 different target arrays and switching target sequences while switching back and forth on the sawhorse, there's a lot to remember. I can see it would be easy to get off of sequence because typically we shoot targets large then small. But in this stage, we have to reverse the order and we fire 2 shots small, then 1 shot large, and again on the far target. This is a little bit of a tricky stage, and I highly recommend slowing down and really taking your time. It's better to not fire all your shots and time out and get every impact than to try to rush through this stage and potentially miss a whole bunch, because a 1 inch target at 55 yards off of the top of that sawhorse is going to prove to be very challenging for most shooters. As you'll notice when I'm transitioning back and forth between the positions on this sawhorse, I try to keep my movement to a minimum by keeping my bag and myself in roughly the same position so that my movement is efficient and I can get set up for the next shot sequence quickly. This proved to be invaluable because I end up using the whole runway on this stage. That was a good one. Let's get on to the next one.
Clean. How much? Ooh.
Next up, we have 3-leaf clovers. We have a 1.5 at 62, a 2-inch at 76, and a 3-inch at 98 yards. We're going to start standing, rifle and all gear in hand, mag in, action open. On the start signal, engage the targets with 1 shot each in the following manner. From position 1, near to far. Position 2, far to near. Position 3, near to far again. And finally, position 4, far to near. Available positions are each tank trap tip and the center. Restrictions. No position on the tank trap may be repeated.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Stand by. Engage.
Working right into 3-leaf clovers and our tank trap stage. For my gear, I'll be using the Grey Up CNC Mini Plate Pro and the Armageddon Gear Schmedium in heavy fill. I'll have my scope set at about 15 power. As far as the strategy goes on this one, I decided that the best way to figure out the wind, and we did have some tricky winds this day, was to take my first position from the center of the tank trap. That allows me to build a kneeling position and get the most stability out of this prop. Working your way out on these targets and back, I felt like I had enough time to go ahead and dial each one of these ranges into the optic. I didn't feel stressed at all about the amount of time that I had on the clock, so for me, there was no need in doing holdovers. However, if this was the time stage, 100% holdover is the way to go, but because it wasn't, it was perfectly acceptable, in my mind, to go ahead and dial all those targets. So something that you need to remember while you're shooting this stage. When building a position on the tank trap tip, it's important to remember to lock those knees out, bend at the waist, reach up with your support hand, and make some sort of contact on the stock of the rifle or on the top of your optic and your bag. This will give you the most stability from one of those tank trap tips. It's one of the tricks that you'll see many experienced shooters do when we need to shoot off of one of these tank traps.
Forgotten mag change. I'm so good at that.
This stage incorporated 2 of my favorite elements in this type of shooting, and that's shooting from the tank trap
Time.
10 seconds.
and shooting a troop line. I had a good time on that one. Let's get on to the next one.
Hell yeah.
Next up, we have hitting clovers. We have a 1 1/4 inch KYL rack at 40 yards, a 2.5 inch at 87, and a 4 inch at 100. We're going to start rifle grounded, bolt back, bag and mag with you or on you, standing 2 yards behind the rifle at a marked position. On the start signal, build a prone supported position, load your rifle, and engage the targets in the following manner with 1 shot each. Largest KYL, middle target, far target. Second largest KYL, middle target, far target. Third largest KYL, middle target, far target. Smallest KYL, middle target, far target. Note, this is a bonus point stage, where you earn 0.1 bonus points per second remaining on the clock. So, for hitting clovers, I royally screwed this one up.
Ready?
Yep.
Stand by. Engage.
For my gear, I'll be using the Armageddon Gear Schmedium in heavy fill and the Harris SBRM bipod with the Really Right Stuff ARCA adapter. There's an important lesson to be learned when discussing this stage. It is to read the stage description before you start the stage. Neither myself nor my trusty assistant, Mrs. 22 Lima Romeo, caught the start position on this one. We just started it like we usually start all stages, and that is just not the case in this one. However, that doesn't change the fact that for shooting prone, your fundamentals are really going to give you the advantage over other competitors, because if your fundamentals are ironed out, then prone shooting should be simple and easy. For this stage, I highly recommend you get very familiar with how to run your parallax knob quickly, because I feel like it's going to be important to use that parallax knob and not shoot at fuzzy targets on this particular stage. With that KYL rack, it's important to get that thing in crystal clear view. I also recommend using lower magnification and using holdovers instead of dialing. Because this is the time stage, you're going to want to be fast and efficient. So using low magnification so that you can find those targets quickly and using holdovers so you don't have to dial is what's going to give you some extra points as long as you clean it. Unfortunately, I did not clean it. Besides the screw up in the very beginning, this was a well thought out stage and a good use of targets. Let's get on to the next one. Finally, we have Luck of the Irish. We have a 2 and 3 inch on a double hanger at 92 yards. We're going to start standing, rifle and all gear in hand, mag in, action open. On the start signal, choose a prop and engage each target with one shot each, large to small. You must move to the opposite prop after every second shot and repeat the target engagement. You will use one of the props twice and the other 3 times.
Is this one going?
Yeah.
Stand by. Engage.
Wrapping up this month's Course of Fire with Luck of the Irish. For my gear, I'll be using the Harris SBRN bipod, and I'll be using the Armageddon gear pint size as my rear bag. I'll be running my scope at about 15 power. Now for my strategy on this one, I wanted to utilize a modified prone from both props. I felt like that was going to give me the most stability, and I wanted to shoot the barrel 3 times because the barrel is like shooting effectively off of a bench. It's solid and secure and stable because the tires can just be a little bouncy. And you guys can see that in the reticle when I find those targets from that prop. Because these barricades are 3 feet apart, you can transition very quickly from one to the other. As long as you have your equipment set up in a neutral position on your Arca rail, you should be able to utilize that bipod for both props relatively easily. But I felt like the Armageddon gear Schmedium, which is what I would normally use, was just going to be too much and have too much height on the rear of the rifle for me to find those targets effectively, which is why I ended up choosing the pint size. That was a fun Course of Fire. Let's go ahead and wrap things up.
"32 seconds left."
All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap for the March 2024 NRL22 Course of Fire. Wanted to give a shout out to Nathan Kojay out of Chapel Hill, Tennessee from Strategic Edge Gun Club. That was a really interesting and challenging Course of Fire. I'm really happy that I got to shoot that today. If you guys are new to the channel, this is your first time stopping by, please consider subscribing. It really does help. But as of right now, we're going to pack up our stuff and get out of here. We'll hope to see you out on the range.